Hello, I'm Marcus Favela, and I'll be presenting on the topic, the importance of choosing your career path. Here are my references. It's my mind map that shows like the subtitles that I'll be discussing or things that I will be discussing in my presentation. So now the first question I had was, what is the Great Resignation? Actually found out that the Great Resignation is an idea proposed by Professor Anthony of Texas University that predicts a large number of people leaving their jobs after the COVID pandemic ends and life returns to normal. So Anthony predicted that a huge number of people, a large number of people will be leaving their jobs after the pandemic ends and we all return back to normal. And we're going to find out why he thought about that. So now the first question I had was, why are people resigning? It was interesting because I read an article written by Morgan when she said that when people began quitting their jobs early in 2021, this was like after the pandemic, because the pandemic hit us in 2020, experts believe that the Great Resignation resulted from the pandemic, which makes sense. I mean, like, we're all stuck at home and not everyone was doing digital work. So it made sense why people early in 2021, they ended up being like, okay, no, we're not going to do this anymore. But then when the pandemic hit, a lot of workers ended up quitting due to safety concerns or because their companies did not provide remote work, which is what I said previously. But then what I found interesting was that in her article, she also outlined that after the pandemic, resignation letters continues to pile up, which is unexpected because we thought that the pandemic was a trigger. We thought that like the pandemic is the real reason why people are quitting their jobs. So I think during that time of lockdown, the pandemic, we all had time to evaluate ourselves, to think about what we really want to do. This is where the title, Choosing Your Career Path, why it is important to choose your career path wisely comes in. Because no matter what situation you put in or what environment, as long as you're doing something that you love, you wouldn't quit because you know that like, okay, well, this is something that I love and I was made to do this. So it was just interesting because she also said that many people resign because they do not feel appreciated or because they find a better opportunity elsewhere. Who wouldn't leave a job if they find a better opportunity somewhere else? But then the universal reason behind the Great Resignation is mostly pay and balance. So some people complain about like that they're not being paid well, or that like their lives are not really balanced. Like the work is taking too much of their lives, basically. I did an interview with people and I actually found out that like the two individuals had something in common. Both of them were working and they both resigned. But what they both said to me was that they felt like the work was just too much and it was overwhelming. And none of them regret quitting, by the way. None of them, they were like, oh, well, this was the best decision we've made of our lives. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep it short. I'm looking at the time. So now, how is the Great Resignation present itself in South Africa? In South Africa, it's different simply because not a lot of people have special skills in South Africa, which sounds a bit controversial. Like, okay, dude, what are you saying? People that are highly talented tend to apply for jobs outside of South Africa because in South Africa, they can't afford to pay them. You'd find that like you have like a good qualification, but then you get in the same amount of salary as somebody who's beneath you simply because the company cannot afford you or anything like that. So as you can see here, we talked about job satisfaction, Also, the reason behind people resigning, which is payment. Yeah, it said something that it took a time whereby 20% resigned for better pay and 70% resigned to resign simply because they felt like there was no balance in their life, which brings me to my advice, because yeah, I'm losing track of time. But yeah, the question I have for my fellow classmates would be that, should we choose a career because we want a stable salary, or should we choose a career because we're passionate about it? That's just a question to think about. So my advice to my fellow classmates would be, for those who don't want to play it safe, let us continue to be dreamers. Let us continue to dream out, to dream. My goodness, what am I saying? Let us continue to be dreamers, follow our passions, follow our dreams, and make the world a better place. My conclusion would be that let our generation be different. Let us choose a different path. Let us not go the normal way. Let us take the risky way. Follow our passion. It doesn't necessarily have to be in academics. If you believe in something and you put in the work, nothing is impossible. I believe that this generation is capable of achieving everything that they want.